Your arms can't be
Why are
over
you-
my arms
but-
if my arms were already there.
But
They
my
couldn't
arms
have
were
been
there, and I
already.
just gave.
What's up, everybody?
What's up?
Thanks for tuning in. We are having our first live
No, your
Q&A.
arms right there.
After a while of not doing it, we're going to start doing a live Q&A once a month. What is it, last Friday of every month?
I
That's
think
what we
that's
decided
right.
to
I
do?
think that's right.
Last Friday of every month. So every 4 weeks, we're going to have a live stream here on the YouTube. We have a bunch of questions. Thank you so much for submitting your questions in the comments of our last video. We're going to get to all of them. And all of you who are watching live, please send some questions in the feed as well. If you want some questions answered, we got quite a few to cover, but we'll get to your question as well. So we're excited about that. Oh,
think-
Fernando, it looks like there's a technical issue. Looks like we are. It looks like the cameras. Looks funny, but if you're watching,
We're figuring it out. Oh, so you had your shorts and everything.
Gosh.
Oh, this is good. Hey, awesome.
all right. So what do we do now?
Let's see.
No,
I see Holistic in the chat. Hey, Holistic. Nathan Haas, what's up? Ron Dorian, my man. What's up, Ron? How's Canada, man? We missed you down here. Gotta get you down here soon.
Nathan's on the live stream as well. Nathan bought a property here in Ecuador. We're excited. to
Oh,
have
this
you.
is Nathan Haas out there. Oh, I see. I didn't fit Nathan Haas. We'll see you soon, my friend.
Fernando, podemos hacerlo horizontal.
Who else we got on here? Dr. Amy Harding. We have.
All right. Well,
Do you know Dr. Amy Harding?
no, I don't.
Okay.
But
Hi, Dr. Amy Harding. Thanks for
yeah,
watching.
we apologize, guys. There's a technical issue. We're trying to fix it.
We're working on it. Mars 54, what's up? Who else we got on here? All right. We're working on the live stream.
No podemos cambiarlo.
Hey, this is what we get first time.
Hay como desconectar y reconectar.
We're gonna try. We're gonna end the live stream and restart it. Can we do that? Can we end it and restart it?
No, apparently we can't.
Why?
No, está bien. Entonces tal como estuvo antes. It's better than seeing the ceiling, right?
Okay, well,
No.
Bear with us, guys.
No. All right, so
Well, hey, while we're figuring this out, I wanted to show you, if you guys watched our video on the Loja Fair that's been there, there was a woodworker. What's the word called? The woodworker? Asuelar?
Asuelar.
Asuelar. It's the craft here where they hand carve the bowls. I got these two bowls. They're really cool. I wanted to show you guys these. Really cool grain. They're really smooth. They're decorative. You can put fruit in them. You can put avocados in them. You could put all kinds of bread. Jesse can put like all your vegan, like supplements in them, and they look
Yeah.
nice out on the table.
Yeah.
They're nice.
Brendan, how much did these bowls cost?
I think they were like $20.
20
I
bucks
don't
for the
recall. No, $20 a piece. I
Oh,
think.
okay, nice.
I don't think so. They're big.
hardwood.
They're heavy.
Nice,
They're
yeah. This is
yeah. I mean, feel it.
Asuelar.
It's got some weight to it. Feel it.
very weighty.
It's a nice
It's weighty.
weight.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it's nice,
Nice,
right?
man.
Yeah. So they were pretty cool, man. Wanted to show this to you guys. Let's see.
All right. I am sick, as you can tell. I don't know if you guys can hear me at all. Let us know in the chat. Can you even hear us in general? I may be the most difficult to hear, but
Yeah. How's the volume?
how's
Can
the
you hear us,
volume?
guys?
The mic's a little far away to get us all in the shot. Obviously, we did not set this up properly for our first live Q&A here, but let us know in the chat. Can you hear us, please? We're gonna go ahead and jump into some questions here. This is a live Q&A, so in the chat, please feel free to put all your questions. In the meantime, we have some questions that we've taken from a previous comments on the channel, and we'll go ahead and jump into those. Looks like audio is good. Awesome. Thanks for letting us know. First question. Cost of living, specifically in Vilcabamba and Loja, including rental prices for a single
Jesse a bit
person.
weak.
Yeah.
He's
I
gonna
can't-
try.
I-
He's gonna
I
talk
can't.
louder.
My-
Can we move the camera in? Let's get the
Well,
phone in.
It's either we're all in the shot or the mic is back.
Hey, I see Brian Dixon joined. What's up, Brian? How you doing? Rosaz, welcome to the chat. Thanks for coming.
But what I can do is hand this off, and you guys can read it.
Yeah,
if you
for
want.
sure.
All right,
Yeah,
let's
we'll
do that.
Ooh, there you go. All right. All right, I'll just go ahead and read the first question. This was a question from a purist video. That being said, all the questions after that are going to be from the video where we ask you to submit your questions. So, but let's get to the first one here. Cost of living, specifically in Vilcabamba and Loja, including rental prices for a single person, not a family, is $1,000 a month sufficient to live a moderate local lifestyle? Yeah, I would say yes. I would say yes. You can live here as a single person with $1,000 a month. You know, your average apartment is going to be between $300 and $500, and then you know you can live here.
That's a nice apartment that has several bedrooms. I mean,
Yeah, you could. Yeah, it's true. You could find something cheaper than that.
if it's a single person, you're looking probably more like 150 to 300 type of thing.
Yeah, 150 to 300 for a one-bedroom apartment. Yeah, that would be about accurate. And you know, food here is very cheap if you eat local foods, if you buy at the market, if you eat at local restaurants, not international restaurants. You could have a whole meal for $2.50, $3 for a nice, you know, big meal.
Yeah.
All your fruits and vegetables that are grown locally are going to be very cheap.
I mean, $1,000 a month. If you have a rent for this is my cat Mercury. She's 16 or 17 years old. We brought her from the States. She wants to be in the shot here, I guess. Carl loves cats.
I do.
But for $1,000 a month, if you're renting a place for $200-300 a month, you could literally eat out every meal. For that, like you could eat, you don't even have to cook. If you don't want to cook for yourself, you could eat at the restaurants every meal, all day, every day on that, and still have some left over for one person.
I mean, if you do $3 a day, that's $9. $3 per meal, that's $9 a day. Times 30, that's $300. Yeah. So yeah, you could definitely do that. Actually, pretty amazing to think about. Yeah, and actually on that note, when I first moved here, you know, we lived on a very small wage, and we were sometimes under $1,000 a month, definitely with a child at the time.
So a family of three.
Yeah, family of three. We'd live sometimes on anywhere between $600 and $800 a month for the whole family at the time.
So when you
But the cost of living hasn't really increased at all.
And
I think we'll do better with this.
is
'cause I'm,
this
like, so
is
far
this
away.
from when you first got here?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, this drum used to belong to us, my wife and I, our family. We've sold
cool
it.
that
We
is.
sold it, and then Brandon ended up buying it from someone else.
Just
now
randomly.
Brandon owns it. Yeah,
It's really cool.
but it was our drum at one point.
It's the circle of life, man. Like it kind of I don't know how's that work, right?
The circle of life, baby.
Circle of life. And you know what? This is a perfect reason to use the drum. Like Mars 54, Jesse a bit weak. Ba-dum-bum.
Okay, bro.
All right. All right. So, yeah, continuing on the cost of living is another question. I'll even mention who wrote the question. This was from Scary Bailey. Scary Bailey asked, cost of living prices for common non-perishable products. Thanks, guys. Yeah, we could just go on about the things that we remember. For example, bananas are very common here.
that's
Ecuador
perishable.
produces. Oh, non-perishable. I apologize. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy a lot of like shelf stable stuff. Personally, I would say in general your shelf stable stuff is a little cheaper, but the imported stuff is more expensive. So it's really like your natural perishable food that's quite a bit cheaper, like orders of magnitude cheaper than what we're used to.
Hey
back
guys,
home.
how's the audio on Jesse with this remote mic? Is that a little better, a little stronger?
Someone said just now, whatever you just did made the conversation quieter rather than louder.
Oh,
All right,
thanks, Holistic.
awesome.
Thank you, yeah. Fernando, nos dicen que está más, que el volumen está mucho menos con esto. Sí. ¿Está prendido o no? All right.
All right, guys, let us. I can't even talk. You talk.
What do you want to say?
Sound check.
Check. How are you guys doing? Is this any better? Carl? Can you say
Yeah.
a few notes?
Please comment in the chat now if you can hear us well, if we pass the microphone around. And thank you for your help. We appreciate it.
We do. I wanted you to sing though, bro.
Okay.
Richmond, North.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky.
I think about it every night and day.
Spread your wings and fly away.
I believe I can soar.
The audio's fine. Thank you, Ron.
Awesome. All right. Oh, this is brutal. We're sorry, guys.
It says the mic isn't working, actually, just now.
Oh, no, mic isn't working.
It's not working.
Fernando, podemos reconectar con este otro micrófono. Nos dicen que esto no funciona.
When you speak directly into the mic only.
All right, so we're actually gonna have to pass the mic. Yeah, perishable goods, right? So it's really non-perishable goods. Or, I'm sorry, it's really perishable goods that there's a significant price difference. And there's also a difference between where you buy them, right? Like if you buy them at the market versus Super Maxi, it's a super different price. You're gonna pay, I don't know, like what, like $1.30 or something for like a head of chard at Super Maxi. You're gonna pay 25 cents at a regular market and like 50 cents at the Vilcabamba organic market. Right. So it's really, really the perishable stuff is very cheap compared to back home and widely available. The non-perishable is probably a little closer to U.S. prices.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say we don't buy a lot of that stuff, but you know, the kids sometimes will buy like palitos, like little ice cream, like 25 cents for a popsicle, like a ice cream popsicle. That seems very inexpensive. A bag of chips, right? I'm just thinking of those items that occasionally we'll buy, maybe $1.50 or something for a big bag of chips, $2, $1.75, I don't know, but it's pretty inexpensive. I think it's less. They're made in Ecuador, most of those. Yeah. Bread. I mean, we have good sourdough bread for like a large loaf, $3, something like that. Yeah, that's I guess it is somewhat perishable. You got no?
Yeah, well, no, I just want to shout out some new folks at Jennifer, Nathan's wife on there. What's up, Jennifer? We'll see you soon, and the fam. We're excited to get you guys down here. Yeah, are you going through the questions or are you going through the live questions?
I'm going through the questions we have here.
Do you want to hit some of the live questions while we got some of those on there?
Yeah.
And then,
There's one
So
here.
we're going to go through the live question, guys, so that you guys are on here. That we'll answer those first. Let's go down. Are there, Rose says, are there people who speak English to a certain degree who do for-hire computer technical support? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah. I mean, if we're just talking about Vilcabamba, there are. There's a number of people who can help with computer issues, and those are a lot less expensive than back home, but they're not really services. You know, they're more like people who have those skills who can do that for you in town. So I've definitely seen some people like that. And then obviously non-English speaking, there are those services, of course, in both Vilcabamba and Loja.
Right on. And let's see, we got another one from Rose. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, put another comment down below, guys. Rose asks, if no Amazon, thank God, where do we get stuff like cotton sheets, towels, juicers, etc.? So yeah, and Mar said, you know, I got that stuff in Loja. You can get a lot of that stuff in Loja. There's a variety of things in Loja. There's in the near Super Maxi, there's some home goods stores, and there's a large variety, even larger variety of that in Cuenca, that has all the brands you're used to, all the things you're looking for. Again, as Jesse mentioned, a lot of the imported brands are more expensive here on some of that stuff. Not tremendously, but they're a little bit more expensive, and Amazon does come here. It just takes longer, guys. So. You can't. It costs a little more in the shipping, and it's not 24-hour, 2-hour, 2-day, next day shipping. It's going to take you 2 weeks, 10 days on most things. Often it's going to cost you a little bit more, but you can. Oftentimes, the price of the shipping, depending on the product, is offset by. You're offsetting the shipping cost by what you would the increased price of buying it in Ecuador. It usually comes about the same. So if there's something really specific that you really want, it often is worth to pay the extra shipping for Amazon.
Yeah, or bring it down. You know, when you come down here, like we've brought our Vitamix down here. We've brought, an Omega juicer and these kinds of things. You were asking about juicers. Vitamix blender. I mean, and then same when we go to Canada, we'll bring down sheets or these types of things in our luggages, just because you can select them, and typically there's more available and a little cheaper.
Yeah, yeah, we do the same.
Let's see. Yeah, there's also of course mule services of all kinds to bring stuff in from the states. But really, one of the really cool things about Ecuador is that both because the cost of labor is so different than what we're used to back home, as well as the quality of skills in terms of craftsmanship, you can have just about anything custom made that back home back home when you're custom making something, whether it's furniture, whether it's clothes, whether it's even bed sheets, I think you could probably have done here. You can back home if you're custom designing, custom making something, it's way more expensive than if you're buying it in the store. Whereas here, you can custom make something at a very high quality. I'm talking like international luxury level quality, and pay a fraction of what you would pay for that same quality item back home.
Like, talk about the suits. Like, you have a good example for that. To show.
Yeah, like I've had custom suits made, back in the day when I was wearing a suit every day in Loja. Those days are over, as you guys can tell. I got here and took my jeans off and was like, Brandon, give me some shorts. But
we were intending to show from the waist.
Waist up, but yeah, we're firing people after this episode. No joke. So. No, yeah. So I've had custom suits made, where they measure you and they build, they make you a suit, and the fabric is as high quality as you want it to be. They have, all the Italian and French and any fabric you would want. That suit, like the high end, nice stuff. That's gonna run you between, like 200, 250 bucks. Even a little less, even 160, 180, up to about $400 or $500 if you want to get into, like the highest end suit you could possibly find. And again, I'm talking about this area. Like there may be more expensive tailors that I don't know about in Quito or Guayaquil, or those larger markets where life's a little bit more expensive. But yeah, you can do the same thing with furniture, right? Like I saw a great question. I think it was from Suzanne on our list there, saying that the furniture in Ecuador looks great from a distance, but you sit on it and the quality is crap, basically, right? It's uncomfortable. So we're sitting on one of those couches now.
Yeah.
We're on one of those very uncomfortable, Ecuadorian furniture couches right now. But if someone chooses to, they can have really high end furniture custom made, which is awesome, right? And then you also are supporting the craftsman, and you're supporting the livelihood of a local artisan, a local craftsman, whatever it is, and you're getting super high end stuff for cheaper than it would be back home considerably.
Yeah. All right. Why don't we jump to some of the questions here that we have on the list?
Let's get the live stream, man. Let's hit those folks, bro. Yeah, let's hit the live
All right.
stream,
All right. So,
How much for a cup of coffee?
how much for a cup of coffee? $1? $1.50?
I mean, if you guys just want like a standard cup of coffee, you're like paying 50 cents, 75 cents, $1 max for like a cup of
Americano.
brewed coffee. If you want something more fancy, if you're a fancy coffee drinker like me and you want want an espresso or a cappuccino, you're depending on the quality of coffee, you're spending anywhere from $1 to $2.50, maybe $3 for something, but it's within that range. It's a basic cup of Joe is 50, 75 cents at a place. Higher end, custom coffee drinks are anywhere from, like I said, $1 to $3 in that range.
And let me just touch on coffee for a second, because it's an interesting topic in Ecuador. So we're in Loja province. The prices Brandon's referring to basically is Vilcabamba. Probably, I don't drink coffee, but probably a little cheaper, I would imagine, in Loja or other places perhaps. But we're in Loja province, which is the best known province for coffee in Ecuador. It produces some of the highest quality coffee in the world. So it's a really interesting place to grow coffee. It's kind of a burgeoning market here. Some of the producers are actually getting some very high grades on their coffee. They're winning awards all over the world. There's brands in Colombia that actually buy their coffee from Ecuador and then brand it under the Colombian brand, because Colombia has that sort of cachet that Ecuador doesn't have yet in the coffee. But we're at elevation here, right? So you've got all these high elevation areas that have perfect conditions for coffee. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're interested in coffee, again, your cost of labor is pretty low here. Rural land is pretty cheap here. and it's some of the most perfect conditions in the world for coffee.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's some really good coffee in the area. There's, Tiff, my wife and I brought our barista machine down. That was like the one big thing we were bringing here because we love coffee and we make espresso every day. And there's we tried a lot of coffees in town. There's lots of great coffees. Finca Suarez has got some great coffee. We got some great coffee from Franco Organico in town. It's got some we like a dark roast, not as much caffeine. We like the flavor, and they both have some really good coffee. So definitely try them when you come down.
Yeah.
Driver's licenses too.
Yeah, so that was funny. All right, I'll just read the next question. Can you ballpark the cost of installing a perimeter fence?
Yeah, I mean, I know you're gonna look at me for this one. We don't have our construction expert here. We should bring on Milton for one of these. I don't actually know really price per square meter on fencing. I have looked into it before. I did get it at various times. But yeah, on our projects, the guy who's in charge of that stuff is not currently present. Any number I give is probably off. So I think we'll have to table that for another moment.
Yeah, if that can help, I bought a chain link fence, pretty tall. Let me think about this. It was 2 meters high and 30 meters long. I was just around $100 just for the chain link, without the posts and all of the other stuff that you need. But that's probably comparable to what you'd get anywhere else. But for a chain link fence, it's pretty good. Now, if you're going to build a wall or something, that's different. I think that probably goes for like $150 a square meter or something like that. Just the bricks and the concrete. All right. So, how is the apartment inventory in Vilca at the moment? What does an average 1 to 2 bedroom apartment cost at the moment? Yeah. So, like we said earlier, you can find an apartment for $150 a month, but it's not very common. That's like
Depends where. Like in Loja, that's easy.
in Loja, that's easier. Yeah, they asked for Vilca specifically.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, for $250, you could find a good 1 to 2 bedroom apartment. On the low end, it goes up to $500 would be the most expensive in Vilcabamba. $500 a month for an apartment, fully furnished. That probably had 2 or 3 bedrooms in town.
I think of one like that, is it?
Yeah.
Apartments like that?
I mean, no, actually, not in the moment. But I think, yeah, they were renting apartments.
No sound, gentlemen.
There's no sound at all.
You guys not hearing us at all? Comment down below if you guys are or are not hearing us.
Please comment. Okay, we can move to the next one. But yeah, there are some apartments available for sure. Sound is good. All right. We got sound. Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for helping us.
Hold the mic very close.
Okay, wonderful. Mars54 said he had 2 cups of café con leche yesterday for $2.50 and it was delicious. Very good. Rose asks, I'm retired, but education, past work probably also qualify for professional visa. Compare as to benefits / downside.
I don't totally understand the question, Rose, but if you're asking about the professional visa, that's what my wife and I did a little over 2 years ago, so I'm not fully up to date if things have changed since we did it. I don't think so. But what was required from our professional past was our transcripts from college and our and our diploma from college, and it had to be added to this university list, and we had to get those documents apostilled. But that was the only professional requirement, in addition to the traditional visa requirements for all visas, which are birth certificates, background checks, state and Fed background. I'm not sure where you're coming from. If you're coming from the States, you'd need both a federal and a state background check. But for the professional visa specifically, the education piece is your diploma apostilled, college transcripts apostilled. Hope that answers the question. If not, post something in the comments and we'll try to address it.
All right. I'm going to read the next one. The 5 W's. Have you been to Baños or Macas? If so, what is your opinion on them? Hoping to move to Ecuador in 5 to 8 years. I've been to Baños Baños is really nice. Never been to Macas. Baños de Agua Santa, I'm assuming Tungurahua up north. Beautiful area. There's lots of large waterfalls there. It's a very touristy town. There's a lot of tourism from Quito and from all over the country. Very well known for the waterfalls, the adventure, kayaking and rafting and hiking and all of that stuff. But it's a beautiful place to visit. Yeah, there's some expats there, so I think it's great. I've never not been to Macas. My understanding is it's very jungly. It's kind of close to it's in the Amazon. Yeah, that's what I know. You've got, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so Baños, there's two Bañoses. I assume they're talking about the one that you're referring to in the Amazon, which is very popular for expats. They call it like the floating city, where it's supposedly it's on some sort of landmass that's not connected to anything below it, and it kind of like can move in mass and doesn't bother anything. I don't know. Look it up. Tell me if I'm wrong, but they definitely do call it like the floating city or town or something like that. It's the hub in Ecuador for action sports. So there's bungee jumping and rafting and kayaking and all kinds of stuff like that up there. Um, yeah, Macas, I've driven through that whole section of the Amazonian region. I mean, the whole Amazonian region in Ecuador is super interesting. It's very lush, it's very green, it's very beautiful. It tends to be humid, it's very safe. The towns are very small. Macas is one of the larger towns, actually. If I remember correctly, what that town was like, it's actually pretty big. Could even possibly be considered a city in Ecuador, but a small town for back home. Um, but yeah, beautiful, beautiful areas. The whole Amazonian region. Puyo is a town I really like. That's close to Macas. That I've been to. But yeah, really that whole trip from all the way south up to I wouldn't go all the way north. Actually, it starts to get absurdly hot as you get towards the Colombian border and not as safe. But the rest of the Amazonian region is lovely, and you've got a lot of indigenous areas and rivers and all kinds of experiences you can have. Land is very inexpensive. You got to be okay with some humidity, but other than that, I think it's absolutely beautiful.
All right, I just want to. I just reread your question, Rose, so I want to clarify a couple things. But thanks for joining, Juliet. Yeah, we had some technical difficulties with the live stream, so this is the best angle we can do for now. Sorry about that. We're working on it for next time, but yeah, is what it is. Bear with us. Um, let's see. Was it Rose? Rose, yes. So I just reread your question. You said you're retired, but you also have the professional. So if you're retired and not earning income from your profession any longer, if it's a retirement income, a pension, or a Social Security or something like that, then you likely wouldn't qualify for the professional visa, even though you might meet the requirements from having the diploma and the transcripts, like I talked about. So, if your income, if you are retired, then you're probably going to have to go through the retiree visa, pensioner's visa, and that's essentially what you're doing there is just verifying your income. You give them a couple months of bank statements and then all the traditional documents, but you likely won't qualify under the professional unless you're actively working and bringing income in from outside of the country.
Let's just answer. Dr. Amy Harding, are you familiar with the price of cows, horses, goats, and mules? Sort of. You can have, well, I know about horses a little bit. I mean, a nice horse, you pay $1,000 for like, a good horse, like a young, untrained horse type of thing. You can get horses that are, of course, much more expensive, like Paso Fino. But I think they're like, 10 grand is like the most expensive horse you can get here. And those are like really, really high-end horse. Yeah, show horses. Like the ones in Vista Bella, they're about $10,000, those nice horses. How much is a cow? Like $500, $1,000, just about?
Yeah, so even horses, right? It totally depends on what you're looking for, as you mentioned. So you could get sort of a middle-aged, normal Ecuadorian kind of workhorse for like $200, $300, $400, no problem. But yeah, you're talking about sort of usually they're Peruvian, that are more like $1,200 and up, for some of the the breeds. What do they call them? Like Paso Fino, yeah. And so there's a range there. Donkeys generally are around $200 for a donkey. Yeah, they're very very inexpensive. Cows just depend on the size and the age. So, a business that a lot of people are in Ecuador, a lot of locals, they'll buy bulls for around $400 to $500, $400 to $550, depending on the size of the bull, and then they'll have it for a year or two, and then they'll sell it for slaughter and make some money. So that's a pretty common price. I know people will pay a lot more for like adult pregnant cows. Then there's all the different breeds. So you'll pay a little more for certain types of milk cows or certain types of bulls that meet whatever requirements people are looking for. Was there? I think mules tend to be a little bit more expensive than donkeys, in my understanding. Is there anything I missed there? Goats are cheap. My wife actually bought some goats. I don't remember. I think they were like $40 or $60, or maybe she paid like $200 for like a male and a female, and the female was pregnant or something like that. They're not expensive. Same with sheep. Sheep are pretty inexpensive as well.
Nice.
Just want to give a shout out. We got a couple new people on the live stream. Aaron, what's up, Aaron? We've seen your comments on the channel. Thanks for being here. And let's see, Joanna White, welcome. Guys, post your questions below. We'll jump on them. Anything you send, we'll do our best to answer.
Nice. All right, there's a question for me here. Oh, it went away. Aaron. Carl, is poutine available in Vilca? Maybe a need for poutine hut. There is no poutine available that I know of here. Yeah, no, I don't think there is. I don't think there's ever been. So poutine I think is a French-Canadian, Quebecois dish. You don't know what it is?
Poutine?
You know what it is? So it's French fries with, what do they call it? Like curdled cheese? You call it?
Yeah, curdled, well,
Like they're like-
curdled milk. Yeah.
No, but like it's a special kind of cheese. I don't even know what it's called in English. It's like, they're like clumps and they're kind of like squeaky.
Yeah.
You eat it?
Like cheese curds.
Cheese curds. That's what I mean. So French fries, cheese curds with gravy on top. That's what poutine is. I did see it in Olon on the coast, but I have not seen it here in Vilcabamba. So good idea. I mean, it's like probably the fattiest, most highest calorie dense foods dish that exists, but it's very tasty. I haven't had it for 12 years or whatever, or even longer, actually. All right. Okay, we can hear something's going on. All right. Anything else we have here? Do you see anything else?
Hey, we got Nate Barrett.
Oh.
Nate Barrett, what's up? Welcome.
All right, Nate asks, welcome, Nate. Hi, guys. My wife is an artist and ships internationally. Any idea if that process is cumbersome, expensive for Vilcabamba Loja?
Yeah, I mean, it's not cheap to ship things in and out of Ecuador internationally. I mean, similar to prices anywhere in the world. If you're in the States and you're sending something to Europe or something, it's not inexpensive. Now, I don't know the rules in terms of whether an art that someone produces would qualify to need an export license. That I'm not sure about, but you certainly can get export licenses here on anything that you want to export. I don't know if art would fall under the need for that or not.
Nice. All right. Well, there was a question here. Oh, this works. I'll just move to here. All right. Question for those newly here from Jennifer. What is the number one benefit that you have experienced being there in your family life? Brandon?
Yeah, for me personally, it's such a more tranquilo lifestyle. Everything is less. I feel less wound up here. My family feels less, like a tightened spring. Like, we were just back in the States for a month, and it felt like the longer I was there, the tighter I was getting wound. And here it just feels different because the culture is that it's part of it. Even if you are busy here and you have a busier lifestyle or your kids are involved in activities, it just, I don't even know how to describe it. It feels different because there's not that there's not that go 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 mentality. Excuse me, you're giving me your stuff, bro. Yeah, there's not that go 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 mentality. You know, there's not the rush to be part of things and do things. It's just everything's more laid back. Yeah, it's just less stressful overall. So for my family, it's probably been, been able to still be involved and having the kids involved in activities, but not feel like it's the end of the world if they're late or if we're running behind or if this happened or that happened. It's just more like, go with the flow here, which is a transition period. We've talked about this on the pod where, Ecuador isn't for everybody because if you can't adapt and adjust to. Okay, guys, I think we're back. Can you guys comment below? You can hear us and see us. We back? Sorry about that.
Okay. Anyhow, relaxed. This place is relaxed. And I think, part of that is the culture. I think a lot of that is the culture. It's just sort of the vibe of the area. And then it also, for me, with the lifestyle stuff with the family, a lot of it has to do with the proximity of everything and nature, right? So we're just so close to rivers and streams and hikes and mountains and just activities like that. And because the environment is so safe and the atmosphere is so relaxed and people are so kind and all that kind of stuff, it creates this vibe where you just kind of relax and flow through life, which for me is very different than what I was used to back home.
Yeah, and I just want to add to this something practical for us as a family. If we lived in Canada with 2 kids, we would have to have most likely both parents working. I would have to work. My wife would have to work. And in this country with the cost of living, I am able to work, and my wife can be a stay-at-home mom, take care of the children, homeschool. So that's a very practical, beneficial thing about living here.
I see a question about let's see, who was it from Rose, or let's see where I just lost it. It was about the taxi trip from Loja to Quito. I see a lot of people comment about that. We actually missed, my family and I missed our flight out of Catamayo one time, and we actually took a taxi from Catamayo to Quito, and then flew from Cuenca. I'm sorry, from Cuenca to Cuenca. Yeah, we actually were going to do it to Quito, but then we took a taxi to Cuenca and then took a flight from Cuenca to Quito. And I want to say the taxi was $150 or so. It might have been $200 from Catamayo to Cuenca. So this was almost 2 years ago now. So it's probably slightly more expensive. It might be $250 to go to Quito, I think, or to Cuenca, sorry, and to Quito, I think it was might be like $700 or $800 to get to Quito. It's a pretty long drive by taxi, but I don't know if you remember, Nathan and Jennifer. I know you guys took a long taxi drive one of your trips while here. So if you guys remember the cost of that and you want to comment below, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of long distance transportation, obviously people generally are not taking taxis for that. There's van services as well as bus service between really everywhere in Ecuador. It's actually kind of wild where the buses, the types of roads and the kinds of areas the buses have regular routes, daily routes through. But yeah, you can get a van, for example, Loja to Cuenca, Loja to Cuenca, then to Guayaquil. You can go to Quito as well. The vans are very inexpensive. I haven't taken it in many years, but I think it was like $12 the last time I took it. I don't know if you guys have an update on that. The buses are very inexpensive as well, and you can get those anywhere in the country. They also, for long distance bus rides, they actually have pretty comfortable buses where you can lay flat on sort of really horizontal and have a comfortable bus ride. But yeah, people generally only take taxis around town, around the cities.
All right, looks like we got a couple new viewers on. Oh, Don, thanks for watching. Don Garcia, he says saludos. Saludos, muchachos.
Saludos.
Saludos. Thanks for watching. And he has a question. What type of growth do you see happening in the Vilca area in the next 5 to 10 years? What say you, Jesse Bayeski?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I've been here 10 years. So I got here in summer 2013, and Vilcabamba was a very different place then than it is now. There was, there was a lot less people then than there is now, a lot less development. Vilcabamba has been, really rapidly developing since 2016, I would argue, is really when it started in earnest. There was a boom prior to that, prior to when I got here, where there was a lot of growth in general. And then there was a bad time economically between like 2013 and 16, and then there's been a lot of growth since then. And so I expect that to continue for sure. I mean, it is continuing in all of these towns in the region we're in, but Vilcabamba certainly included, perhaps even a bit more so. Although that would be second to Malacatos. Really, the whole area is developing. That will continue. The development will now start to reach past Vilcabamba from Loja, so into Kinara, mostly to Mianuma, those areas. That will continue. However, um, development here, and yeah, development here is not debt fueled. It's not funded by financing, and so a boom here is not what a boom looks like back home when there's really a boom in a town or a city, and capital just pours in at light speed, and you have hundreds or even thousands of buildings going up at the same time. You don't have that kind of stuff here. You have, when things are going well like they are now, in these areas, you have consistent, steady growth, right? New restaurants, new apartment buildings, new development, but it's at a reasonable pace. It's not the boom and bust cycle that you would have back home, that are sort of sort of leveraged or condition or levered to the debt markets.
All right. I just want I can't find the question here, but someone was asking if Ryan is still one of our salesmen. Yes, definitely. Ryan is our sales agent, lead sales agent at this point at Abundant Living. He still had his building series that he was posting videos. That was completed. That was another question. Ryan's house is completely finished. Beautiful place. It's actually stunning. I'll ask him. We'll ask him to make a video.
talked to him today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah, so I talked to Ryan this morning at our agent meeting, and he is filming the final video to show the finished product, to show everything he's done, to talk a little bit about how the process was for him. So that is in the works. They had they've been gathering footage and just getting settled into their new home. So there's been a little bit of delay, but they're excited Amy and Ryan are excited to share their beautiful creation with you guys and talk about the process. So that is coming soon.
Awesome. Very good. All right. Let's just read Juliet's question because it's funny. Any wonder why so many Canadians in the chat? Oops, my wife's calling. Why so many Canadians in the chat? We probably all hope to escape the tiptoe to tyranny. That's probably the reason. That's probably the reason. I'm Canadian myself. I've been here for 12 years, but Canada, there's some weird things happening in Canada. Anyways, we don't have to go too deep into that. Here we have Mars, 69-year-old female. I prefer to walk, hike alone, hear various opinions as to safety, theft, question mark, problems rare or common, question mark, thoughts, along river, up to waterfalls, roomy Wilco, etc. You want to jump in, Jesse?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, in general, in my opinion, safety here is excellent. Does that mean that you can live without worrying about your safety in any way? No, not at all. There are incidents that happen, particularly. There's sort of like occasionally, it's happened, I think, in two waves in the 10 years that I've been here. There's like a crew that'll kind of roll through town, and there'll be a bunch of break-ins for a period of time, generally speaking, pretty short, and then they'll get caught or they'll get run out of town one way or the other. And then Vilcabamba will go back to its extremely safe sort of baseline. But in terms of the trails, the rivers, the hikes, I've heard again in the 10 years I've been here, I've heard of like maybe two or three incidents where somebody was hiking or generally speaking hiking and got robbed. So there was a couple of incidents in Mondongo. I heard of one incident along the river once. That's really it. That's all I've ever heard of. So, my wife, many women walk the trails, all day, every day to enjoy them or to and from their houses as well. So yeah, in general, it's really not something you have to worry about. I would say at all. That being said, I've heard of maybe two or three robberies in the time that I've been here.
Very good. Did you want to say something about that?
No, not about that. No, I was just...
Yeah, I mean, I concur with what Jesse said. These types of things do happen periodically. It's not very uncommon. I feel very safe myself and my family. But yes, you probably don't want to walk along the river trail at night, for example, right? Like, there's no light or anything like that. And most likely nothing would happen. But, you're more vulnerable. There's no light. It might be, you never know. Same thing with Mandango. Most people won't hike it, at night or anything like that. But I would say, 69-year-old female, if you want to go for a hike to Mandango, maybe bring a friend, bring somebody with you, right? Like, don't go alone. That's one of the things that people typically will give as a tip. Most likely nothing would happen if you went alone, but just for, extra safety, it's always good to be, because you could, get hurt also or something like that if you're hiking. So, all right, let's move on to
Political front.
which one is there? Just tell me, Brandon.
Any update on any news on any news on the political front? I'm sure it's better than Canada at the moment. So we covered this a little bit in our pod that is coming out tomorrow, right? It's coming out tomorrow, but you want to give them a little sneak peek on the political front, Jesse?
Sure. So, and again, I apologize for my voice here, guys. I'm sick and I've lost my voice. But yeah, there's an election coming up in the middle of October. Essentially, it's a business family's son whose father was very famous. It's really the largest, most well known, I think wealthiest as well, family in Ecuador who is one candidate. This is the runoff election. So this is the second round, la segunda vuelta, versus a socialist candidate who comes from Rafael Correa's party. So right now, Noboa, who is the business family candidate, is currently about 10 to 11 points up in the polls. So it appears that he will be the next president, barring the unforeseen between now and then. But we'll see what happens.
Is there an industry? This is from Tony Scott. Is there an industry for a computer engineer? That is a good question. Is there an industry for a computer engineer? What would you say?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say really, really any job. If you're, first of all, okay, so let's just talk a little bit about working in Ecuador as a foreigner. The labor market in Ecuador in general is relatively soft, and it also doesn't have the pay scale that you're going to be accustomed to. Now, of course, the cost of living is reflects that as well. So you might be paying 10 to 20% of the cost of an apartment here as well, and the cost of food and things like that. But you're going to be making also, perhaps an equivalent amount of money at working a job. So, and in general, the labor market here is pretty soft. On top of that, to get work here, as a foreigner, you're going to have to speak the language essentially, unless you're just catering to expats. But you're going to have to speak the language, and you're also going to have connections, right, to be able to get in the door someplace, have somebody hire you. Life in Ecuador in general is done through connections, through relationships. So yeah, I wouldn't highly recommend coming here and looking for a job, regardless of what sector or what profession you're in. That being said, this is the land of opportunity in terms of entrepreneurial opportunities, business opportunities, investment opportunities. So I would highly recommend, considering looking at that here in Ecuador. Really, one of the better ways to do it is if you can get online work and live here, right? So if you're making foreign money, for example, and spending it here, that's really a fantastic way to go about it. I know we have friends, like young people, right? Friends who are, in their early 20s even, who have like little, cool, like little online jobs where they're making, $20 an hour or $25 an hour, or even less maybe. And, you can live fantastic here, right, on that kind of income. So that's a great way to go about it.
Hey guys, we got about 6 minutes left on the live here. So if you have any more questions, put them in down below in the chat. If we missed them, repost them now. That's all the live ones we see for now. So we want to make sure we get all those before we jump off here. But so go ahead and shoot those now. We'll give you a couple seconds. In the meantime, Carl's going to answer a question that we had from a previous chat, I think.
Actually, there's a question here in the chat. Maybe you missed it. Juliet is asking, will the country population comply with and apply restrictions on travelers, masking, vax proof, or testing, etc.? I don't want to go if that is to be expected next time. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's no indication that Ecuador is wanting to implement any of that at this point. That being said, I do believe the Ecuadorian population, most of them watched news, and they were very afraid when COVID happened. So I think they would comply with mask wearing and that type of thing, like they did last time. Yeah, I think Jesse, you have an interesting perspective on that.
Yeah, well, just really quick, just comply in what sense? Like in Vilcabamba during that time, most people didn't wear masks. Most gringos didn't wear masks. Many Ecuadorians did not wear masks. Occasionally, you saw some folks from Loja that, like, I would say in my experience here during just after that time, Loja, there were much more mask wearers in general, and people would ask you to put a mask on to go into a store in Loja. I didn't experience that here in Vilcabamba. I wasn't here during the beginning of COVID, so maybe it was different then. But I know shortly thereafter there was no one asking us to wear masks, and most people didn't wear masks here. And yeah, so I wanted to share that.
Yeah, I mean, Ecuador's sort of history with restrictions and COVID. Ecuador shut down early. It was one of the countries that shut down relatively early. It was one of the first countries to open back up. So it was a pretty short-lived kind of shutdown that Ecuador had. It was pretty intense for a few weeks, where there was things were pretty shut down, and then life went back to normal, pretty quickly. Ecuador did have testing requirements to travel into the country for a period of time. Those are no longer active. They did not have vaccine requirements for traveling to and from Ecuador, so they didn't do that. There were some masking requirements in the country as well. Again, followed in some places and not in others. In general, one of the things I really appreciate and like about Ecuador is that people here are very human, and things like and people here kind of live the way they want to live in many ways, sort of period. And authority here is not overbearing. This is not a country that understands even what tyranny would means, right? Like this is not a people don't have a contentious relationship with government in this country, right? The people who occupy government, whether it's for the most part police, or in the municipios or the politicians, they're just people. Like they're people that the community knows, that that you interact with, and for the most part they actually care, and they're connected to the community. So it's definitely, in my opinion, much more human, and therefore, if you care about things like vaccine requirements, mask requirements, stuff like that, I think you're in a lot better shape here than in some other places.
Right on. So Rose, we see your question. Sorry we missed those. We'll jump on those now. So Rose asks, and this is probably a good one for you, Jess. Rose asks, have heard Ecuador is now starting to get on high-tech surveillance of their people trend, getting it from China. If so, how likely do you see that happening in Vilcabamba?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's again, right. It's a lot of these things with Ecuador are there's like the news and there's reality just on a lot of this stuff, right? So you could make the argument, if you read the papers, that Ecuador is, and I mean the international papers, that Ecuador is beholden to China, for example, through their contracts on oil and gold and other things. But as you actually kind of look at it on the ground here, I don't view it that way, and I would say the same. I would say the same for a lot of this stuff, right? So these are subjects that I care about, right? These are things that affect my decisions in terms of how I'm going to live, where I'm going to live, who I'm going to live with, all that kind of stuff. And Vilcabamba is an extremely freedom-loving town, which I really appreciate about Vilcabamba particularly. But Ecuador overall. So even when I got here in 2013, there were some articles that I came across where China was supposedly creating some kind of TIA, like total information awareness system for Ecuador. And so it's not that I haven't seen, at least cosmetically, it's not that I haven't seen any moves towards greater information awareness, greater information monitoring. That being said, it's not a place that those concerns would be high for me because, again, sort of the way the society is structured. So you have here reasonable people doing reasonable things, kind of for the most part countrywide. And when in the occasional instances or circumstances where somebody gets some power who tries to do outrageous stuff, people put a stop to it. We saw that, for example, in Loja, there was a mayor who got elected at one point who was like he was a psychopath. He was the very tyrannical. Like he kind of shut down a couple political rivals' businesses, and he bulldozed a lady's house, and he jacked up taxes, and he did all kinds of stuff that he made everybody's life more difficult. Well, it didn't take them long until they organized, get together enough signatures, had a referendum, and got him out of office prior to the end of his term. He's run like two more times since then. He doesn't get any votes. He's like an outcast at this point. And that's kind of how it goes here, right? I would argue the same thing with Rafael Correa. Like Rafael Correa was a very powerful and popular political figure here for a long time. As his policies and proposals got more outrageous, he became very unpopular, and they got rid of him, and they got rid of him. So, that's a long-winded answer, but I think that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I think that parlays into your question, Don. What would you say the main reason that is stopping people from making the move to Ecuador? And I think part of the answer Jesse gave in the beginning of his monologue there was that it's the news, it's the media, it's the hyperbolic fear porn that you're getting in social media, that you're getting from people that aren't living in Ecuador, that people that aren't living in Vilcabamba, that people haven't been here in 10 years, or they're people that are here and are just unhappy, and they're just bored, and they're spreading some of that. So some examples of that are like that I deal with my own family. I'm only here a little over 2 years, and there was the presidential candidate that was assassinated, right? Everybody heard about it, everybody knows about it, and it's like, oh my God, are you safe? It's so dangerous there. And people forget that, yes, it is a big deal. It's a tragic event. It's unconscionable that happened. It sucks. A sitting president was assassinated in the United States. This stuff happens. Like, so Ecuador is a small country. Vilcabamba is even a smaller village than that. Like Vilcabamba is a very small town, guys. So when there's one, if you've watched some of our pods, a tienda owner got their cell phone stolen, and they got it on video, but the community came together and they found the guy, and he was arrested. They worked together to get the phone back and get the guy arrested. But that makes big time news. That stuff happens daily, multiple times a day in most cities in the United States and elsewhere, right? So we're not downplaying that it doesn't happen, but the quantity of occurrence, or the likelihood of it happening, is much less in my opinion here. It's much safer. So I think that is one of the big reasons that people latch on to a headline. They don't know anything about it. and they just assume that that's everywhere. Something happens in Guayaquil, and it's like it's happening here in your backyard in Vilcabamba. They just don't know. So I think it's a little bit of naivete, ignorance, not understanding some of that. Let's see. Do we have? Let's see. We got a question from Rose. Do you want to handle the Spanish tutor question, Carl?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. There's definitely a few Spanish tutors here. There's Adriana, who's a Spanish teacher tutor. A lot of people had success with her, and are learning Spanish with her. And there's a few other ones. Anyways, there's a lady from Spain as well. Her name is Laura, and yeah, people seem to be learning Spanish. All that being said, immersing in the community, in the local culture, making friends with your neighbors, speaking to your taxi drivers. That's how I learned Spanish. I didn't have to go through a tutor or anything like that. I just, learned through speaking with people and listening to the language. And, you live here for a while, you'll start learning Spanish. And yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My family and we've taken Spanish lessons with Adriana. She's awesome. So she's definitely, if you want to help with the transition, she's definitely going to give you an edge up on learning some of the basics and really getting more comfortable. But I think you're right, Carl, like just getting immersed into the culture and doing things. Like my daughter has been immersed in the culture, and she can go and speak way better than I can. She corrects my accent. My son less so, but he understands. He's a little more shy to speak it, and that's just from immersion. Very, very few lessons, but the lessons do definitely help. Let's see. We're gonna take this last question, guys. I think we're gonna jump off here shortly. So if you have any last minute questions, please throw them in. But I see Glenn. Glenn, welcome to the chat. Thanks for joining. He says, you just saw you were live. Will you please address my question? 13-year resident visa. That there might be someday too many gringos. Yes, years, but it's happened elsewhere. Yes. So we get that question. Often. What I would say to that is Vilcabamba is a really small place, and gringos are probably more of the population here in Vilcabamba and Cuenca. Are those the two biggest expat locations? Cotacachi. But it's still a fraction of the population, guys. The expat population in all of Ecuador is minute. In some of these more popular places like Cuenca, Cotacachi, and Cotacachi, and Vilcabamba, they're small populations, so it's the expats are still a minority here, even in Vilcabamba. So you're much more likely to come in contact in town with 10 to 1. I mean, I don't know. Was that fair? 8 to 10 to 1, Ecuadorian to expat.
Yeah,
so
I would say that's pretty fair.
hopefully that's fair.
Yeah, let me touch on that for a second too, because a lot of that depends what you're looking for, right? So there's a few hotspot destinations, kind of like you mentioned, and there's also a couple on the coast, and there's a decent number of expats in Baños as well, and a few other places. So if you want to seek out some expats here, you can. And of course, they say the only constant in life is change. This is true, and true here as well, right? So Vilcabamba was a different place 15, 20 years ago, and will be a different place 15, 20 years from now as it continues to develop, mostly through Lojanos, like mostly through local people moving here and building and starting businesses here as well. That being said, if you want that old school Ecuadorian life, there's 10 trillion towns in this country where you can go and live that, right? If you're looking to be the only expat, even, you can do that all over this country. Most of this country is really undiscovered internationally still, and it'll be many years, if ever, but certainly many years until that's not the case. I've traveled the vast majority of this country. There are really very few places where you see any foreigners. And even in those places, like you mentioned, the numbers are pretty low. So yeah, I don't think there's, sure, will Vilcabamba to continue to attract foreigners and continue to grow? Absolutely. And if that turns you off, then there's 10,000 other towns that, are perfect for you.
Yeah, so we're gonna wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us today on this live Q&A. One thing to mention, I had sent a video. There's a video that was posted yesterday for your questions. We didn't get to all of them. We're gonna definitely answer all of the questions that were asked in the comment section yesterday on our next podcast. So tomorrow there's a podcast, Saturday morning. Next one, next Saturday, we'll answer all of your questions. We'll do a Q&A. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in today.
Yeah, check out the podcast tomorrow, guys. We kind of talked about, what Vilcabamba means to us. So hopefully that resonates with you guys, and you can kind of hear what we really think about, what Vilcabamba is and what it is for each of us. So, yeah, thanks again for watching.
We hope to see you here one day. And until then,
We'll see you next time.
Ciao, guys. Thanks.